those joining. We will get started here in just a couple minutes. We'll give it about 2 more minutes for others to join. You are at the virtual college night for seniors for the class of 2026. And we'll start with introductions in just a couple minutes. We're going to let others join. All right, thank you for those who have joined. We are presenting tonight for College Night for Seniors for the class of 2026. We'll start with introductions. I am Amanda Maloney. I'm one of the school counselors at Amador High School, and I have last names SMB through Z, so the end of the alphabet. Ms. Hashimi, would you like to go next?
Yeah, we can go in reverse order. I'm Miss Hashimi, and I have students with last names NAS through SMA.
And I'm Miss Pacheco. I have students with the last names GUM through KIZ.
And I am Miss Flores, and I have students with last names A through DAS.
I'm Miss Yu, and I'm the support counselor.
All right, so our agenda for this evening, we are going to, you want to go to the next slide? Before we get started, before we go over the agenda, just some housekeeping items. This webinar is going to be recorded. It will be available on the counseling website and shared out at a later date. The Q&A function is unavailable and the chat is disabled for attendees, but panelists are going to be able to share links and resources in there. If you need closed captions, you can press the CC button in the toolbox. And there's also translated captions available, again, with that CC button in the toolbox Zoom feature. And now we're ready for our agenda. So we're going to be talking about counseling information, important dates, choosing a school and major, standardized tests, transcripts and letters of recommendation, community college, CSU and UC applications, private out-of-state, and other application portals. So those are our main topics for this evening. Some of us introduced ourselves, but here's a complete list of the counseling team. So also on the team is Ms. McEntee Ponce, Ms. Torres, and we also have our counseling secretary, parent liaison, and registrar who support the counseling team as well. The counseling website is full of information. This presentation will be posted there as well, but we have a lot of information on post-high school planning, on high school planning. So we encourage you to check it out. It's on the main website for Amador. It's a counseling tab right at the top. And this is just what it looks like. So on the main page, we post updates. And then you can see over on the left-hand side, there's all the different tabs with different information and resources. Some important dates coming up. We have a college application workshop tomorrow from 5:30 to 7. So this will be on campus for you to come and get some application support. So if you need help filling out your applications, you can come 5:30 to 7 tomorrow at Amador campus. There's also college app support during the access periods in October and November. So this will be every access, every Wednesday and Thursday during the access period. Students can sign up in FlexiSketch to come get some help on their college applications. There is a Tri-Valley College Fair October 20th, 6:30 to 8:30. It is at Livermore High School, but it's available for all students in Tri-Valley high schools. A financial aid night, a webinar like this night, will be released in the spring, so the date will be sent out by email, so you can get that information on financial aid. The deadline for CSUs and UCs is December 1st this year. So that's the last day students can submit the CSU or the UC applications. We recommend sooner, but that is the last date. FAFSA deadline is March 2nd, so that's for the free application for federal state aid. It's a big source of financial aid for students. So the application for that, March 2nd. Las Positas Community College priority enrollment will be in the spring. And the dates for common schools and common apps, the privates and out-of-states vary. But the last date to request a counselor recommendation in Common App for January deadlines will be November 21st, which is before we go on Thanksgiving break. We'll talk more about letters in a bit. So the application process, we're going to go into that a little bit. It is a lot, and depending on which schools you're applying to, there's a lot of, essay writing or personal insight questions. And so it does feel like a lot for students, a lot of different pieces to cover and to make sure they take care of. So we're going to be going over some of those pieces. August through September, this is the time to finalize where you're applying, come up with your college list. October through November, you're working on filling out applications. October through January, you're submitting applications. And then December to March, you can expect to receive admission decisions. Then by May 1st, you decide where you're going to go to college. So some of these time ranges are bigger. That's because the privates and out-of-states really vary with their application types. The December 1st is for the CSUs and the UCs. Deciding where to apply in the major. So we do have linked on this slide, we have a college night for juniors and a building a college list, past presentations that were done. You can find these on the counseling website under post-high school planning. So if you need a deeper dive into those topics, that's where you can go. Considerations for applying. So this is the where. When selecting schools to apply to, you should consider academic fit, majors, the facilities, the curriculums, financial aid, and scholarships, and the net price are the financial fit, personal fit, campus, culture, size, location, support services, extracurriculars. And I just want to talk for a moment about the difference between a safety school and a reach school. So a safety school is where you have a high probability of being accepted based on your academic profile compared to others who were admitted in the past. And then you can find that information on schools' websites. If you look up freshman admissions, you can find that on school websites, so you can do some comparisons. A reach school is selective schools that are overall, they have a low acceptance rate. They're accepting students with really high GPAs. So there are schools that, students can apply to as long as they meet the minimum requirements, but students are a little less likely to get in. And so we want students to have a balance of safety schools and reach schools when they're doing their applications. Some tips for choosing a major: taking the pressure off, starting with strengths and interests. So what you might want to, do for the rest of your life, what you're interested in and passionate about. Research careers and majors. You can find ways to take a class, shadow, interview someone, volunteer, some ways to get some exposure and experience, and then research colleges that fit your needs and interests. Different colleges have different requirements to apply, so it's important you understand what is expected before you start the application. There is a checklist on the counseling website, like this one here. And so this is a tool to stay organized and keep track of everything, all the colleges you're going to, have you sent all your required materials. So you can use this one. You can find it on the counseling website. You can make a copy and use it as your own. I'm going to go over standardized testing next. It is important to note that most colleges no longer require SAT or ACT, and many have said they will not factor them into admission decisions. This is especially for the CSUs and the UCs. They no longer accept ACT or SAT. and will not use them in admissions decisions at all. The privates and out-of-states vary on how they use ACT and SAT. Some are test optional, meaning if you don't have the test, it won't hurt you. If you do have the test, you can submit. And you can check fairtest.org to see which schools are test optional and test required. So again, the ACT and SAT are no longer used by UC, University of California, or the California State University CSU systems for admissions. Private out-of-state schools do vary. You have to check those individually to see if a school is test required or test optional. Again, that website fairtest.org can be used. If you do have ACT or SAT scores and you want your private out-of-state colleges to have them, you must send the scores directly to the college from College Board or ACT websites. So you go into your portal there, your account there, and send the scores from College Board or ACT directly to the colleges where you're applying. Another portion of many applications, especially for the private out-of-states, are going to be the counselor evaluation and sending of transcripts and school profile. So CSUs and UCs do not require transcripts or letters of recommendation at the time of application. Grades are self-reported at the time of application for CSU and UC. That means the student enters in all their classes, all their grades, and it's self-reported when they apply. No transcripts are sent. For the privates and out-of-states, these schools typically require transcripts at the time of application. And counselors upload PUSD transcripts into Common Apps for students. So if a student is applying on Common App, they waive their FERPA, their rights, and so counselors can then complete the evaluation form and upload the transcript. Once the counselor uploads the transcript, it's available to every college you're applying to in Common App. Even if you add a college later on after the counselor submits, that college will still get a copy of everything that the counselor completed. The counselor only has to be entered once into the application, and then our information is sent to all the schools the student is applying to. If a school is not in Common App, so if it's a private or out-of-state not in Common App, and they have their separate portal, you request your transcript through parchment.com. You have to create an account, use a personal email address so that you can reuse it later on. Check, and there's a video here for instructions. Parchment charges per transcript, so only use for the schools that require it. CSU, UC do not require transcripts. If you took any courses outside PUSD, the official transcript for those courses must be sent through Parchment directly to the private out-of-state college you're applying to. And the outside courses must be ordered and sent to each college separately, regardless if the course is on your PUSD transcript or not. So the counselor evaluation, this is the part that the counselor completes on behalf of the student. So students complete a questionnaire for us, a Google form questionnaire, and this helps us complete the counselor portion, including the letter of recommendation. We ask students complete this counselor evaluation form at least 4 weeks before the earliest deadline. And the evaluation form can be found on the counseling website. Students also have to add the counselor on Common App, or if they're using a different portal, they need to add the counselor there. And just a note, to be mindful of deadlines, make sure you're giving the counselor enough notice. Same for teachers, make sure you're giving teachers enough notice. November 21st is the last day to request a counselor evaluation for January deadlines, and this is because of the Thanksgiving holiday and the winter break holiday. And then if for some reason you did forget to ask the counselor until it was winter break, you can still submit your portion of the application, and the counselor will submit theirs when they come back from break. And the school will still accept your application as long as you submit by your deadline. So some colleges require a teacher recommendation as part of the application, and you can see this in Common App. It'll tell you if the teacher recommendation is required or optional, and then how many are required or how many are optional. We do have a recommendation video and PowerPoint on how to ask teachers if you want to look at that more in depth. But you want to select a teacher who can speak to your character. So someone who knows you well, a teacher who has a personal experience with you. The teacher may ask for a resume or a brag sheet. And if they do, you want to provide that. You want to talk to your teacher in person and request a letter at least 4 weeks before the earliest deadline. You know, this is just being polite, common courtesy. You're asking the teacher for a favor, so you want to make sure you ask nicely, give them plenty of time. And then again, in Common App, in the college applications, you can see how many letters are required, how many are optional. You want quality letters, so it's not necessary to, if there's optional letters, it's not necessary to include those if they're not very personal letters. So more is not always better. All right, we're going to start talking about the different application the different application types. I am going to go over community college, and then Ms. Hashimi will take it over from there. So for community college, we have many California community colleges. They're all over the state. This is a map. You can see how many there are. And these community colleges are also called two-year colleges or a two-year degree. You can also do a transfer route or vocational training. So there's lots of different options with community college. Priority admission is in the spring of senior year. So many students will submit their CSUs, their UCs, private out-of-states. And then if they decide later on they want to apply to a community college, they can do that in the spring. Again, 116 community colleges. Our local ones, Las Positas in Livermore, Alani in Fremont, DVC, San Ramon. Some students go further. So like if they really wanted to live in Santa Barbara, they could attend community college at Santa Barbara City College. Total cost of community college is much less than typical 4-year. And they don't require SAT, ACT, don't require grades or essays or letters of recommendation. So it's a simpler process. It's for a student who maybe had some academic struggles in high school. It's a chance to start over and have, you know, the community colleges don't look at high school transcripts. They don't look at high school grades. So it's a good opportunity for students to start over. Or if a student wants to, you know, work on their associate's degree or their transfer degree, they can do that as well. The different community colleges have transfer admission guarantees, tag programs, and those are agreements with a certain UC or CSU that if a student follows these classes and earns certain grades at the community college, then they can guarantee a transfer to a CSU or UC. So again, these are our local, nearby, Livermore, Fremont, Pleasant Hill, and San Ramon, our local community colleges. And then Ms. Hashimi is going to take it from here with this, starting with the CSUs.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Okay, so I'm going to go over the UC and CSU applications. So starting with the A through G requirements. So the A through G requirements are the 7 subject areas that students have to meet certain criteria in order to be eligible to apply to the CSU and UCs. So as you can see here, there's Area A, History and Social Science. The UCs and CSUs require 2 years, 1 year of World History, 1 year of US History. For English, Area B, we require 4 years. Area C for math, they require 3 levels, so that means going up to Algebra 2 or Math 3 and Math 4. Please note that the UC recommends going up higher in math to at least level 4 to pre-calculus. Area D, Lab Science, so the UCs and CSUs require 1 year of life science, 1 year of physical science. Again, the UC recommends 3 years of either life or physical science. In Area E, world language or language other than English, they require a minimum of 2 years of the same language or 2 levels of the same language. And again, UC recommends a 3rd level or higher. In Area F, visual and performing arts, the UCs and CSUs require 1 year. And then for college prep electives, which could be fulfilled by anything else from areas A through F or a separate course that fulfills Area G, they require 1 year at minimum of a college prep elective. And when it comes to the UC-CSU GPA, so when you apply to the UC and CSUs, they have a UC-CSU GPA, and the way to calculate it is looking at your 10th and 11th grades. So the way they calculate it is they take your 10th and 11th grade coursework. So any coursework you've completed in 10th and 11th grade, that is an A through G course. So one way to determine if a course is an A through G course is if it has a P in the title on your transcript. They exclude pluses and minuses, and they award extra points or weighted points if the course has an HP designation. So if it's an honors weighted course, or if it is a transferable college course. When you are calculating your UC-CSU GPA, it's important to note that the UC-CSUs do cap the extra weighted points at 8 semesters or 4 year-long classes. And that's for everyone, so 4 weighted classes. But even though they cap it when it comes to calculating your GPA, they still will look at the number of AP and honors classes that you've taken overall. And this is one helpful resource for calculating your UC-CSU GPA. So if you search up CSU GPA calculator, or if you click on this link, you would just enter in, you would look at all the coursework you've completed in 10th and 11th grade, and then you would add in the number of A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's that you've gotten in A through G courses, and then you would enter in the number of honors credit. Again, that maxes out at 8 semesters or 4 year-long classes. And then you would hit calculate GPA. And this is the GPA that you're going to use to submit to the CSUs and UCs. So some a quick overview of differences between the UC and CSU applications. So when it comes to GPA, they both use the 10th and 11th grade grades, but they do look at your courses that you are enrolled in for 12th grade. Neither use SAT or ACT for admissions purposes. When it comes to extracurricular activities, the CSUs don't ask for them apart from Cal Poly SLO or for supplemental factors, which I'll get into later. But for the CSU application, for the most part, it's grades. The UC application, they do have a whole section on extracurricular activities. For the application essay, the CSUs do not have an essay. The UC does have the personal insight questions, which you will choose 4 prompts out of 8, and they cap each essay to 350 words. Neither require letters of recommendation. The CSUs might possibly request a transcript or mid-year report, but it's not likely, and the UCs typically do not. The CSUs you'll apply to all of them using the CSU Apply application. The UCs you will apply to using the UC application. And as for dates and deadlines, the CSU application will open on October 1st and close on December 1st. The UC application opened on August 1st, but you will not be open for submission until October 1st and will close on December 1st. So some quick application information. So when you apply, you're going to select fall. That should say fall 2026, sorry. Fall 2026, freshmen with or without college credits. And for the CSUs, they're going to ask for your goal and you will say first bachelor's degree. So again, fall 2026, freshmen with or without college credits and first bachelor's degree will be your goal. If you would like to apply for fee waivers, you're going to do that directly on the applications. You will enter in the name of every school you've attended from 9th through 12th grade. So this includes Amador Valley and any other schools you've attended, including non-PUSD schools. And once you do that, it'll allow you to use the A through G drop-down menu to pick your classes. Amador is on a semester system, so your high school enrollment, when it asks, you're going to say spans from August 2022 to May 2026. Continuing some application information, please make sure to use your transcript to enter in your grades and courses. Don't do it from memory. You want to make sure you're accurate. When it comes to reporting middle school grades, for the UCs, they ask about the number of years taken of a world language and or math. For CSUs, they ask about the grades, middle school grades for world language and math. And then when it comes to reporting high school courses, for the UC, they're going to ask you to report your courses by each year of high school. For the CSU, they're going to ask you to report your high school courses by A through G subject area. So if you'd like to know which courses count as honors level or that have a weighted point, you can click on this link once we share the slides. You can also take a look at your transcript. If there's an HP next to the course name, that means that it's weighted. Some courses have the name honors in them, but it's not weighted. So it's important to be careful and make sure you're paying attention to that. If you're still unsure, we've linked the UC A through G website at the bottom of this slide. That's a really good resource. You can search up any school that has an A through G course list, including Amador, and then take a look at what counts as an A through G course and what is weighted. So after you apply, it's important to note that the first thing you're going to get is an acknowledgement email or letter thanking you for applying. And then in that email, the campus that you apply to is going to let you know how to set up your personal student online portal. So there is no one place where you are going to have all of your information and emails from the CSUs or all your information and email from the UCs. Each campus is going to reach out to you individually, and you're going to have to make a portal and email for each campus separately. And that's what they're going to use to communicate with you for everything. So make sure to set up your unique student portal account and make sure to be organized and keep track of the link to the website even. Sometimes they can be hard to find, your username, your password, your email, whatever it may be. And then around January or February, you might get a notification in that portal about any missing items. So this could be financial aid, this could be transcripts, this could be related to housing, it could be really anything. Yeah, so they share information like orientation, housing, financial aid. If they need an updated transcript, if they need anything from you, they would tell you in the portal. And so if you see down at the bottom highlighted in pink, if you do not check your portal regularly, you might miss a deadline specifically for you to submit something, and your application might automatically be denied. So keep in mind if you're applying to multiple campuses or multiple schools to pay attention to checking those portals regularly and staying organized. Okay, so when it comes to supplements to your major, so if some UC-CSU majors might require something in addition to your application, so this could look like an audition, a portfolio, an essay, specific coursework, test scores. So make sure to check each university's individual major website for more information. So some examples linked on this slide are Cal Poly SLO's graphic design major or UCLA's nursing major. So in order to apply to the graphic design major at Cal Poly SLO, you have a whole portfolio requirement in addition to the CSU application. And for UCLA's nursing program, you have an entire nursing application separate from the UC application. And some of these majors have different deadlines, requirements, and supplements. So if you're going to be applying to a major that requires any of these things, make sure to prepare early and again, stay organized. Okay, now we're going to dive into specifically the CSUs. This is a map of all the CSU campuses throughout the state of California. So a quick overview for the CSUs, there is one application for all 23 campuses, and we've linked it right there. The window for submission, it varies, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but for now, it opens October 1st and it closes December 1st. We recommend to finish the application by Thanksgiving. It might be really appealing to wait until Thanksgiving break because you might think it's a quick application and I'll have lots of time, but every other senior in California is going to think the same thing, and you don't want to be in a position where the application crashes and it's the night before that it's due and you're at home. That's not a good feeling. So make sure to finish it as early as you can. When it comes to fees, so tuition and fees only is roughly between $6,800 to $11,955 a year. If you tag on room and board, it'll come out to around between $25,000 to $36,000 a year on average. When applying to the CSUs, there are no essays, there are no letters of rec. Again, when it comes to the GPA, they calculate your 10th and 11th grade grades, 10th and 11th grade grades in A through G courses, except for Cal Poly, which uses 9th grade as well. When it comes to applying to this CSUs, their minimum GPA for eligibility is a 2.5. And then when you apply to each CSU campus, even though it's all on one link and application, you will apply to each campus separately through that link, and then you will pay separately for each campus that you apply to. So to dive a little bit deeper in the GPA requirement, so CSUs do have a 2.5 and above GPA requirement to meet eligibility. However, impacted colleges are majors, which means colleges and majors that have more demand or interest than they can accommodate. They might use supplemental factors for admission, so they might ask other questions, ask for additional things. And then if you have a GPA below a 2.5, you should still apply because they might you might be evaluated. They might just reach out and ask for supplemental factors. So some of those things that we mentioned earlier, they might ask about more questions about your high school experience. And then we've linked at the bottom, it says first time freshman supplemental factors by campus. That's a helpful resource. And then this is what I mentioned when I said that the window for submission varies. So we don't have the updated dates yet. We're anticipating that the dates will be updated once the CSU application opens. But this is just to give you an idea of last year. As you can see, most of the campuses deadlines were either their stated deadline of December 2nd or after, with the exception of Cal Poly Pomona and CSU San Marcos for nursing. So what that means is try to get your application done by December 1st this year or earlier. Well, do get it done by December 1st, but earlier if you can, the earlier the better. Okay, CSU redirection. So this is a process that the CSU does for students who were not able to be accepted to their first choice campuses. So if you are an eligible student who applied to the CSU campuses and were not admitted, they will reach out to you and they will notify you of an option to be redirected to a CSU campus that has space and is not impacted. So they would reach out to you after April 5th. And if if this is something you're interested in, hop on that super quickly because you want to make sure that you get the chance to go to the CSU you really want to go to as long as there's space. So you want to respond to that email as quickly as possible. And then the California Promise Program. So this is a program for a specific number of CSU campuses. So it's a pledge program. And so students who enter in those campuses are pledging to complete their bachelor's degree in 4 years. And this is a cool program because if you pledge, you are given priority registration and you're given routine academic advisement. And priority registration is really helpful in college, especially if you have an impacted major or impacted school, because it means you get to pick your classes first, which means you get to be on track and get first pick and make sure that you are taking the classes you need to take and getting the classes you want to take in a timely manner. In order to remain in that program, you have to meet with your advisor on a consistent basis, develop an enrollment plan, complete 30 semester units a year, including summer. And they've listed the CSUs that participate in this. And then if you're interested in this, we have some links at the bottom for you to learn more. So for example, San Diego State offers this, but only for specific majors. So definitely make sure to look into that if it interests you. And then if you are interested in on your CSU application, they're going to ask you to check. They're going to ask, are you interested in the California Promise Program? And so you would indicate interest there. CSU scholarship information. So the CSU campuses do offer scholarships for incoming students who meet different criteria, but it's not in the application. It's a separate website. And so we've linked it here below for you to kind of look through the options. It goes through eligibility requirements and descriptions of the different scholarships that you might be eligible for. So definitely make sure to explore that. And so the freshman application checklist. So these are things to make sure you have when you're ready to begin your application. So first is your unofficial transcripts. All your high school transcripts, college transcripts, if you took college classes. This is really vital because you're going to be asked to enter in every course you've taken at every school you've attended while in high school, and you need to make sure that it's accurate. You're going to list the courses you've completed, those that are in progress, and those that are planned. And if you list a course as in progress or planned, thwant to expect that you complete it. So make sure to be accurate. And then the campuses, again, if they need them, they will request transcripts. You want to have your social security number handy if you have one, your citizenship status handy, a method of payment as well, because each campus has a fee for applying. Again, if you are interested in a fee waiver, you can indicate that on the application, but you want to have some method of paying for the application fees because they will be due at the time of submission. They're going to ask about information around your annual income. So if you are a dependent, this would be your parents' annual income. If you are an independent, this would be your personal annual income. You want to have the information ready in regards to any educational programs, extracurricular programs, work experience. So anything like that you want to just have ready to report if needed. If you're interested in the Educational Opportunity Program, which is an awesome program for first generation college students, you want to make sure you have that handy. It does have a separate application and will require some things. So definitely click that link if you're interested and learn more about EOP. So if you've taken or plan to take the ACT, SAT, any AP exams, IB exams, again, they're not going to be considered for admissions, but if you've taken them and you want to, and there's an option to report them, it might help you, or it might count toward placement into math and English classes after acceptance. So it won't help you with your admissions. It won't be counted toward admissions, but it'll just be additional information for them to have for after, if you are accepted, for them to consider when placing you in English and math courses. And then you might want to have your California State Student ID handy. This is at the top of your Amador Valley transcript in case you needed it. And then this is a really helpful slide, CSU technical support. So there's a phone number, there's an email, and there is a link to a website. So definitely make sure to utilize this in case you have any technical issues or any kind of concerns or questions about the application. And now we will dive into the UCs. So a quick overview of the UCs. So there is one application for all 9 UC campuses, and we've linked it there. The application opened on August 1st, but will be open for submission between October 1st to December 1st. So the deadline is December 1st. Again, make sure to finish it before then, as early as you can. They require 4 essays, so they offer 8 prompts. You select 4, and you will be given a maximum of 350 words per essay question. The tuition cost is around $14,000. If you choose to live on campus, then the total cost would average around $42,000 a year. The UC's the UC GPA, again, is calculated using courses taken in 10th and 11th grade. So all courses you've taken in 10th and 11th grade, all A through G courses, and they require a 3.0 minimum GPA. We've linked here how UC applications are reviewed, so definitely make sure to look into their specific criteria, more information on their holistic admissions process. And this is some information about that here. So the UCs use a holistic admissions process, and what that means is they try to look at the applicant as a whole, using whatever information you can give them. And so that kind of splits it into 2 different sections. So there's the academic information and the non-academic information. So with the academic information, they're looking at your GPA, they're looking at your performance in and number of courses beyond the minimum A through G requirements. So what that means is the A through G courses that you've taken, they want to see how you did in them, and if you've taken courses above the minimum, did you go above and beyond in different subject areas? They're going to look at the number of honors and AP courses you've taken. They're going to look at the eligibility in local context. So this is if you fall in the top 9% of applicants from your school, the UC determines that, and they will mark your application themselves. And this only applies to California residents. They're going to look at the quality of your senior year program of study. So what kind of courses did you choose to take in your senior year? They're going to look at the opportunities you had in your high school and whether or not you took advantage of them. They're going to look at if you had what kind of performance you had in different subject areas, and if you really stood out as, shining in a certain subject area. For the non-academic side, they look at your achievements in special projects. So any kind of special projects you've worked on, they look at your improvement in your academic performance. So, if like grade trends, right? So they're going to look at your grades and see if you improved over time. They want to know about any special talents. They want to know about your awards. They want to know about your achievements. They want to know about your extracurriculars, what you do outside of the classroom. They're going to look at if you participated in any educational preparation programs or any school projects. They're going to look at your academic accomplishments in light of life experiences. So if you had any kind of life experiences that made it hard to do well in school, how did you overcome that? If you had a lot of opportunities, how did you take advantage of them? And also geographic location. And so this is some admission statistics from the UCs for last year. So please be cautious in drawing conclusions from this. Just use it more of a general guide to selectivity and not as like a predictor of your chances of admission, because this is the middle, right? But it is helpful to kind of give you a picture of what their acceptances look like. And then some general application info for the UCs. So make sure to provide accurate information. Again, use your transcript, don't use your memory. There is a 20-minute inactivity time limit, so you want to make sure as you move through the pages, it will automatically save, but you want to make sure you're not letting the page go inactive. For advice around your personal insight questions, write them in a separate document, like a Google Doc. Edit them, write them, revise them there, and then insert them into the application when they're done. Definitely use the help desk for both technical and application questions, and then apply broadly. So, like Miss Maloney said at the beginning, with regards to reach, target, and safety, make sure that you are applying broadly across the different UCs. And then for the activities and awards section, so this is what it looks like. So there are 6 categories in the activities and awards section, and you're gonna be able to list a maximum of 20. So definitely choose any experiences you've had that, stood out to you the most during high school, that show your passions, that show any leadership experiences that have meaning to you. And so these are the different categories. So coursework other than A through G. So these are academic courses that you participated in at Amador or what at any school that you attended that don't fit into the A through G category. Don't use non-academic courses. This is more courses that just don't fall under their A through G approved course list. If you participated in any educational preparation program, so for example, if you were an AVID, you would note that. The community service section, so if any kind of community service, we do have a 20-hour community service requirement, so you might want to put that on, like put, whatever community service you've done, especially if you've gone above and beyond that. Work experience, so if you've held a job, that shows a lot of responsibility, it shows organization, time management, leadership, that's really important to put on there. Awards and honors, so any awards, whether countywide, statewide, national, that's really helpful to put on there. And then school-based awards are also meaningful, but you want to make sure you put context because they're not going to know all of our school-based awards. So just putting details such as one example, 5th place out of 500 students. But any kind of award can be helpful in helping them get a picture of who you are. Even a perfect attendance award would be good to put on there. And then extracurricular activities. So any kind of participation in just anything. What have you done outside of the classroom? Sports, clubs, programs. They want to know. And so what have you committed to over the years? It shows passion, that shows commitment, that shows leadership, and enter in details about those commitments. And then some advice for the activities and awards section, don't use acronyms for the names of clubs or awards. So we have a lot of really creative, fun names for a lot of our clubs. And so you want to make sure that you explain what that means in the detail section. And if a club has an acronym in the name, make sure to write out the whole acronym. Spell it out and then explain your level of involvement in the club. Don't list the same activity in multiple areas. You want to make sure that you're maximizing the number of activities you share. And so make sure the most important activities are reflected in some way. And then if you didn't have time to do any outside of school activities or community service or volunteer or employment or paid employment or internships or anything, tell them why. So, how did you use your time? Was it a choice? Was it a requirement? So were you taking care of your siblings or your grandparents, or were you just super committed to doing homework or doing your research in your own time? So they want to know, even if you didn't participate in extracurricular activities, explain that. They want to know why. They want to know what you did. And so there is a maximum of 250 characters to describe your group or activity, and then there is a maximum of 350 characters to describe your role in the activity or to describe the course that you took. And then this is specifically for UC San Diego. So UC San Diego has a different system than the other UC campuses. They have multiple colleges within their school, and they ask you to rank the colleges. This ranking does not affect your admissions for getting into UC San Diego. I think, yeah, so you're just gonna go ahead and rank. It looks like this, yeah. So do your research on if you're applying to UC San Diego, do your research on the different colleges. I think they list on here that make sure you understand the theme of each college at UC San Diego. So they just want to know your preference. It does not affect your admission. They just want to know your preference should you be offered admission. So they have a whole website. You can research each college and learn more, and then that will hopefully inform your UCSD college ranking. And now I will pass it on to Ms. Pacheco.
Hi, so I'm going to cover the personal insight questions, or PIQ. So for the personal insight questions, you have 8 questions to choose from, and you select 4 of them. And None of the questions count more than the other questions. It just depends on which questions you feel like are the best fit for you. Okay, next slide. Um, there is a worksheet that you can use to help guide you through the UC personal insight questions. There is a link within the PowerPoint. We'll post the PowerPoint tomorrow so that you can go in and click on there. There's also a link on the UC application, but it also takes you through some tips and hints on how to what to cover if you're choosing particular or specific questions. So what do the UCs want to know about you? This is your chance to tell them in your own words. The personal insight questions are a little bit different than essays that you usually write for other colleges or essays that you write for your classes. This is actually going to be more of an interview. So you're going to be using a lot of the words I, you're going to be talking about yourself a lot. I see that Thank You, Miss You posted the personal insight questions guide there in the webinar chat, so you can go ahead and click on that as well. So there's 8 prompts for you to choose from, and you have to respond to 4. Each response is limited to a minimum of 250 and a maximum of 350. Like Ms. Hashimi said, go ahead and type it in another doc and cut and paste it into the application itself because you do have that 20-minute limit per page. Which questions you choose is entirely up to you. Again, one question doesn't carry more weight than another one. It just depends on which ones you feel like are the most appropriate for you to answer. And then keep in mind, like I said, all questions are equal. No, none of them have an advantage over another. There's no right or wrong way to answer these questions. So it's really just about getting to know you as a person, finding out a little bit about your background, what your interests and achievements are, and they want you to tell them in your own voice. And remember that the questions are personal. So you're just expressing who you are and what matters to you and what you want to share with UC. Make sure it's your own voice. Make sure that you are writing these questions. Knock on wood, hopefully no one plagiarizes, but if you get caught plagiarizing any of your personal insight questions, not only will your admissions be revoked and your application not be considered, you will not be allowed to apply to the University of California for the rest of your life. So you don't want to take that chance, and I know none of our students will, but just wanted to make sure that you knew of the high stakes if you ended up plagiarizing your essay, your personal insight questions. But again, I don't think anyone's going to do that, and this is your opportunity to tell the UCs about yourself. Next slide. Okay. You see personal insight tips. So make sure that you give yourself enough time to prepare and think through what you want to say and how you want to answer your questions. Again, think of it as an interview. So you're going to be using a lot of I and my statements in your responses. Sometimes it helps if you have someone maybe ask you the question, like you're having a conversation with you, and then you can go ahead and write down how you would reply if you were in an interview or if you're having a conversation with someone else. Proofread and edit it. You're not going to be evaluated on your grammar or spelling or sentence structure. However, you're going to want to proofread it because you want to make sure that your writing is clear. The readers are reading hundreds of applications, and if they have to struggle to read your answer, it's going to be distracting and it's going to keep them from understanding what you're writing. Solicit feedback. So you can have family, teachers, friends read your personal insight question answer, and they can give you advice or let you know what they gathered from reading your answer. So I always think that's helpful, that if somebody reads it, they can say, okay, so what I got from reading this is I learned that you are really involved in an extracurricular on campus, or I learned that by taking a science class, you became really interested in chemistry, and then you decided to go on and you're going to want to major in chem. You did an internship over the summer related to chemistry. So really, what are they taking away from your essay, or what is your personal inquiry answer telling about you? So are you getting the points across that you're trying to get, or do they have more questions that they feel like you want to clarify within your answer? Like I said before, make sure you copy and paste. So you're going to want to write it in another doc and then copy and paste it into your application. And then relax that this is just one of many pieces of information that they're looking to consider as part of your application. So again, it can only add value. You're not going to not be admitted because of your answers to your questions. It just gives the reader another opportunity to get to know another part of you, get to know you a little bit better, and get to give a voice to your application. So Ms. Hashimi said in the extracurricular section, also in the essay section, do not use acronyms. If you have to spell it out, that would be the preference, because you don't want the reader trying to figure out what you were trying to refer to or trying to figure out what your acronym stood for. Again, they're reading hundreds of applications and they don't have time to go and research that information. Avoid quotes and dialogue. Again, think of it as an interview. If I asked you, so what do you want to major in? You wouldn't start out by, this is my favorite quote is, you would say, I am really interested in English, and I started becoming interested in English when I started reading books when I was a child, or something like that. So again, just think of it as an interview that goes along with the creative writing that wouldn't be appropriate for a personal insight question or storytelling. You only have so many words, so try and not be repetitious. You want to get as much information in your answer as possible. Don't ask questions, because again, that's going to take up some words in your word count. And again, if I asked you a question about yourself, you wouldn't reply with a question back. You would answer the question. And then inappropriate use of humor. Just remember, as a teenager, what you find funny as in humor, maybe someone closer to my age wouldn't find it funny. So and it's hard to read it when it's when it's typed out versus saying it verbally. So just try and not use humor because you don't want it misinterpreted, and it doesn't usually have a positive outcome when you put it in your essay. So just try and avoid that if you can. Next slide. And then including mental health in your application. And so UC campuses acknowledge that sometimes students want to address their mental health in their UC application. They had a great workshop that Miss Yu attended. And so Miss Yu did a video highlighting some of the points that were made. And so she has her link to her video below if you want to watch the video. And then if you decide to write a little bit about your mental health, you'll know some highlights or tips on how you can do that within the application. Okay, first prompt. So again, there are 8 prompts. You get to choose 4. So the first one is describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So really, they're looking at when have you been a leader? And it could be in the more traditional sense as we think of leaders, like you're in leadership, you're an officer in a club, you're a captain of a team. But it also could be maybe you're a leader in your family, maybe you're a leader in your friend group, um, maybe you're a leader in your class. So what are your responsibilities as a leader? Did you lead a team? Did you help out or take care of your family? How do you experience change? How did your experience change your perspective on leading others? And then did you help to resolve an important dispute at your school or an organization? And again, I think there are many ways to look at the role of a leader. And so if this question speaks to you, you can just talk about in what context are you a leader and what does that look like? And so you can just talk about the task, think about your accomplishments, what you learned from the experience. And again, it's not limited to our traditional sense of leadership, although that would be appropriate to use as an example as well. But really, you can kind of broaden the definition of a leader, and it can be, like I said, in your family, in your friend group, in your class, in the school community, in the Pleasanton community. So again, there are lots of examples of leadership that you can use to answer this question. Next slide. Okay. Thank you. Every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. So it could be problem solving, original or innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. So describe how you express your creative side. So again, being creative, I always think of like art or drama, but it can also be a creative way of problem solving or a creative way of creating something like a website or I know the robotics club creates robots, so it can look very different depending on what your area of interest is. So what does creativity mean to you? What do you have a creative skill that is important to you? And then what have you been able to do with that skill? Um, if you creative, if you use creativity to solve a problem, what was your solution? What are the steps you took to solve the problem? How does your creativity influence your decision inside or outside the classroom? And then does your creativity relate to your major or a future career? So you want to kind of think through those questions, see if this prompt would be one of your 4 that you want to answer for your application. Okay. Prompt 3, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that skill over time? And so if you, I know we've got some, again, some people or some students who are really strong athletes or are artists or performers or musicians. So any of those talents take a lot of time to develop to make it to the point that you're at now, and maybe you have a goal to achieve even higher or better things as you get older, whether that's in college or professionally. And so if there's a skill or a talent that you're proud of, this is the time to share it. You don't necessarily have to be recognized or have received an award for your talent, although if you did, definitely you will want to talk about it, so feel free to do so. Why is this talent or skill meaningful to you? And then does the talent come naturally, or is it something that you worked hard to develop the skill or talent? Because as we know, some people just naturally have a talent. And other people have to work harder at it. And then those that have talents that come naturally, a lot of times they still need to work at it to get to the level that they want to be at. Does your talent or skill allow you opportunities in or outside of the classroom? Sometimes because of your talent, you're traveling to compete or perform. If so, what are they and how do they fit into your schedule? So usually, again, if you have a talent or skill, you're spending a lot of time outside of school working on that skill. So it could be practice. And so how many hours a week do you practice? Do you have competitions? If so, how many hours or how often are your competitions? How have you done in those competitions? How many people are you competing against? Um, and then how do you balance everything else if you're spending a lot of time on that skill? So those are some things that you can address in your essay. Next question. Describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or work to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. And so, any educational opportunity can be anything that has added value to your educational experience and better prepared you for college. So, for example, participation in an honors or academic enrichment program, or enrollment in an academy that gears towards an occupation or major, or taking advantage of courses that interest you, just to name a few. So it could be Avid, you could be in your Project Lead the Way classes, maybe you've done again like music or something for 4 years at Amador. So if you choose to write about educational barriers you faced, how did you overcome them or strive to overcome them? And then what personal characteristics or skills do you call on to overcome this challenge? How did overcoming this barrier help shape who you are today? So, are you still dealing with the barrier? What have you learned from your experience? Um, have you developed resiliency? What have been some of your coping mechanisms? What does it look like now versus earlier? And again, have you learned from those experiences? So again, they just want to get to know you a little bit more as a person, and then also to have a better understanding of your environment, and how you've just addressed different situations that can be a challenge. So if this question feels like appropriate for you to answer, this is one of your options to select as one of your 4 of 8. Describe the most significant challenge you faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? A challenge could be personal, or it could be something that you faced in your school or community. This is a good opportunity to talk about any obstacle you faced and what you've learned from that experience. So, why was it a significant challenge to you? Did you have some support from someone else, or did you handle it on your own? Just as a kind of a tangent, but if you did get support from someone else, make sure you're talking mostly about yourself, and you can talk a little bit about the person that supported you. Um, I can think of an example that the UCs gave where somebody wrote an essay about their amazing grandparent and how they inspired them, and how they were this huge support, but most of the essay was about the grandparent and not about the student. And so the college is like, yeah, we were ready to admit the grandparent sounded amazing in the essay, but unfortunately they didn't hear enough about the student in that particular question. So again, if you want to talk a little bit about how someone supported you, that's great. Just make sure that you bring it back to yourself and you're mostly talking about you and how you handled it, what you gained from that other person's support, so that most of the essay is talking about you and not your amazing grandparent or somebody else who has supported you. If you're currently working your way through a challenge, what are you doing now, and how does that affect different aspects of your life? So when you've gone through that challenge, how does it change your perspective? And what impact does it have on you now? For example, ask yourself, how's my life changed at home, at school, with my friends, or with my family? Prompt 6 is think about your academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside of the classroom. So, discuss your interest in the subject developed and describe any experiences you've had inside or outside of inside and outside of the classroom. So, did you take a class at Amador and then find that you really enjoyed the subject area, so you sought out like a volunteer program that is related to that, maybe a summer program, maybe you're involved in student organizations and or activities on campus or off campus, and then what have you gained from that involvement? So has your interest in the subject influenced you to choose a major or a career? So let's say um, your sophomore year you took marketing, and then you were in the DECA club, and then maybe you volunteered over the summer at a business, um, or you had a job over summer that is related to what you might want to pursue. Like, let's say you worked at a restaurant, now you're thinking maybe I'll open my own restaurant, something like that. You can talk about that in this prompt. Have you been able to pursue coursework at a higher level in the subject? So maybe you ended up, after the marketing class, you decided that you're going to do AP Macro as a senior. You did the business ownership class. Um, Maybe you took a class at the community college. So again, they're just looking at how did you become interested? And then now that you are interested, what have you done to further your interest in that subject area? And what opportunities have you taken advantage of? Okay, Prop 7. What have you done to make your school or community a better place? So think of community as a term that can encompass a group, a team, a place, like your high school, your hometown, or your home. You can define community as you seem fit. Just make sure that you talk about your role in that community. So, was there a problem that you wanted to fix in your community? Why were you inspired to act? What did you learn from that effort? How did your actions benefit others, the wider community, or both? And then what did you work alone or with others to initiate change in your community? So I can think of an example for this one. Let's say that you noticed that people weren't doing a great job with recycling. And so you decided that that was your task that you wanted to fix. And then maybe you put together, maybe you're a member of a club or you put together a club and you decided to do collect cans and bottles and then maybe educate people on um, not using plastic because it's not great for the environment. And then maybe you started at, let's say, Amador, and then you ended up doing maybe like a plastic, pick up a plastic and trash at like the beach to try and help the environment. Or maybe you worked with the Pleasanton community and also worked on recycling. So that's just one example um, that you could look at and use where you saw something that you wanted to address. You did it maybe in the Amador community, or you did it, sorry, in the Pleasanton community, or maybe, like I said, you went to a local beach and decided to help um, pick up trash or recycling just to keep the environment clean. So just looking at different forms of communities, what did you see the need was? What was the problem? What did you try to fix? Who did you inspire or include in this activity? And how did you make either the school, city, or Bay Area community a better place? And then prompt 8, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? So this is your opportunity to tell a little bit more about yourself that you haven't had an opportunity to tell in other places in your application. Don't be afraid to brag a little bit, even if you don't think that you're unique. You are. So just remember that there's only one of you in the world. They're not necessarily looking for what makes you unique compared to others, but what makes you you. So from your point of view, what do you feel like makes you belong on one of their campuses? Remember that the essay goes to all the UC campuses that you're applying to. So don't say like, what makes me belong at UCSB is, because if you're applying to like UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Davis, they're also reading that essay. So again, you're going to make it like a general UC answer for you want to belong at at all of the UC campuses. When looking at your life, what does a stranger need to understand in order to know you? So again, someone's asking you this question that doesn't know you. So what about yourself do you want to share with someone who doesn't know you? And then what have you not shared with us that will highlight a skill, talent, challenge, or opportunity that you will think will help us get to know you better? And again, remember that the questions are like an interview. So you're just going to want to tell us about yourself, say I statements, and share with the UCs what an amazing human you are. And those are the 8. So we have 2 examples of personal insight questions. The first one I'm not going to read through, but this one is very well written, but doesn't share a lot about the student. So it talks about their outfit that they wear when they go running. I think it tells a little bit about like my story begins. So again, you just want it to be very factual, to the point, provide a lot of information. So personal insight example 1 is a what not to do example. And then the next slide will be the personal insight example 2. And so this one is more closer to how you would want to answer the question. So I'm just going to summarize it real quick so you guys can read it later on your own. But on this one, I see that they're training 40 to 50 miles a week, that the student is captain. He was selected captain, or she was selected captain, because the team voted for him or her. And in that role, the captain schedules workouts, and then also is the communicator with the team mom. It talks about the different races, took 6th place, and we know that's out of 30 to 50 runners. Ranks 4th in their school district and 10th in the state. So we know how they compare to other students within their school district and within the state. And then it also talks about how they've also incorporated their fundraising and their interest in business, coordinated that with their extracurricular. So they talk about fundraising, what they were fundraising for, why they were fundraising, and how they went about doing the fundraising. So they did a car wash, they did a community father and son dance. They decided to do the fundraiser because some teammates couldn't afford the uniform cost. And then they talked about how much money they raised, and that they found sponsors. So all the different pieces that they did, how much money they raised, and that this one was actually the largest sports team fundraiser at their school that their school had ever had. So again, provides context. So this again is just a sample, but it just shows how you can incorporate as much information as you can into that essay. Try and provide context, and try and provide, if it's appropriate, where you stand, for like sports in comparison to other people that you're competing against. And then also, if you're able to incorporate like your major or area of interest, then that is also good. And then also, it shows that he has compassion and wants to help some of his teammates, and also shows that he or she's a leader. So really well written, gives a lot of specific concrete examples, and that's what you would like to put in your essay, or your personal insight question, I should say. And then additional comments. This is an optional portion on the application. It should not be used as a continuation of your personal insight questions, but it does provide you an opportunity to provide additional clarification on important details in your application, such as honors, awards, or activities. You can share information regarding a non-traditional school environment or any unusual circumstances. Describe anything else that you have not had the opportunity to include elsewhere in your application. There is a 550 word limit in both sections. There's one section at the end of the academic section, and then there's one section at the end of the personal insight question. So for the additional comments after the personal insight question, this would be an opportunity to, you could talk about any changes to an extracurricular. So a loss of an opportunity, maybe knock on wood, maybe there was an injury and then you weren't able to participate your senior year, or maybe there was a newly found opportunity. So maybe You just found out about a club that was available on campus. You didn't realize that that was something that you could join at Amador, so you joined it your senior year, but had you known sooner, you would have done the club for like 3 or 4 years. Organization, oh, that's okay. We'll move on. Okay, organization that interests students at the UC, you can include that there. How students plan to engage with the community if admitted to UC, you can include that also. And then for additional comments you can go to the next slide. Academic section. So list a change in the grading system. So when students that were in high school during the COVID years, we had a different grading system. So during that time, we had students include that in the academic system, thankfully, knock on wood. It's been, I think, 5 years now, so we don't have to include that anymore. Change in course availability. Maybe you wanted to sign up for a course and it wasn't offered, or maybe 2 courses were offered the same period and you had to choose between the two, and that's why you weren't taking a specific course. You can explain that in this section. Change in academic performance. So maybe you were experiencing some a personal tragedy, or maybe you were going through some mental health issues, or something else was going on in your life where it impacted your academics. So maybe one semester your grades went down and you want to provide context to that. You can include that information in the additional comment section. School or student name change, you would indicate that in here as well. Change of school environments or policies, you can include that. And then a selection for We the People, leadership, or an audition course. So again, just to provide context that if you are enrolled in a class that required an audition or an application, you could certainly mention that in the additional comment section. And then academic history. So these are a couple examples of an academic and a non-academic example if you wanted to put something in the additional comments. For academic setting context, again, let's say you had 2 courses offered the same period, and so you had to select one, and so you would include that in this section and talk about that you chose class A over class B, and so that's why you're not in class B, but you pick class A because, and you can give your reason. Non-academic challenges are life circumstances that affect a student's academics. So this student was in a car accident and they talk about how that had an impact. They needed physical therapy and then it impacted their grades in their classes. So again, knock on wood, hopefully we don't have any students in that situation, but sometimes there's a non-academic issue that the student is dealing with that does end up having an impact on their academics, and this is the opportunity to provide context and explain to the college why your grades drop. They are open and compassionate to them, so I would just recommend that if you did find yourself or do find yourself in that situation, that you would disclose that to provide context so that they have an understanding of why one semester your grades are a little bit lower than they have been. Scholarship information. The UCs offer scholarships for students who meet specific criteria. The scholarships are embedded in the application itself. So the students can review each scholarship choice and select the match based on their characteristics, interests, and background. It's really important for the UC application that you actually do it in order because if the scholarships that pop up for you as options for you to apply to, a lot of times that information comes from information that you've included earlier on the application. And so if you jump around and you get to the scholarship before you enter in some of the previous page information, some of the scholarships you might be eligible for may not pop up because the application doesn't have that information to provide a list of scholarships that might be a good fit for you, if that makes sense. So just go ahead and fill out the application in order. That way the scholarship page will have all of the previous information and will provide you with as many scholarships as possible that you would be eligible for. Researching other campus-based scholarships. So there is a link at the bottom of this slide. And then also in January, Amador hosts a scholarship fair. We did that last year and it was really successful. We're going to do that again this year. It's usually during lunch, and then sometimes we'll have an opportunity for kids to sign up for access, but a lot of our local scholarship groups come on campus so that you can find out a little bit more about their scholarship and their application, and then you can meet the people that are offering the scholarship. So usually the local scholarships are available between January and March, sometimes into April. So just to keep a look out for that. And then again, I would encourage you to come to the scholarship fair to get more information. Next slide. So here are some resources for the UCs. This is also included on the application itself or before you log in. And so there is the UC admissions homepage, the online application, there's the link there, the UC comprehensive review. So they look at your application holistically. Ms. Hashimi had gone over the different categories that they're looking for when they're doing the review. And then the personal inquiry questions, the personal inquiry question worksheet, which Miss Yu put in the chat. So thank you, Miss Yu, for doing that. UC tips before getting started. And then for your application after you apply to UC, so you can find out next steps. Once you apply, once you've logged out, you can log back in and then it will let you know if you are an ELC, eligibility of the local context recipient, and you'll find that out when you click on how is my application going to be reviewed, and it will indicate on there if you are an ELC applicant recipient or not. And so an ELC is for it's a factor that the UCs look at for admission. The application center, so there is the email, which is available here if you have any questions that you need answers to. There's a 1-800 number, US only, and then there's an outside US number as well. They usually have longer hours the closer you get to your application, but like Ms. Sashimi said, try and get your applications done before Thanksgiving if you can, because when everyone is logging in to the application last minute, as we know, when a lot of people go to the same website at the same time, the website crashes. So you don't want that to happen to you. So try and get it done before Thanksgiving break so that you can enjoy and relax during your break. Next slide. Common App. So this portal is commonly used by Amador students for private and out-of-state colleges they apply to. The Common App opens August 1st. There's about 900 colleges that use the Common App, and there's one required 650-word essay, and then some colleges have their own additional supplemental essays. Make sure that when you're writing the essays that you're reading the question, because I know sometimes kids try to use the same essay for different colleges, and so you just want to make sure that the essay is answering the question. I know it's a lot of essays and it can get kind of overwhelming, but you just want to make sure that the college knows that you're answering their essay and that you're not trying to use another school's essay to answer the question. Typically, these schools require teacher recommendations, a counselor evaluation, and school report. The school report includes your transcript. So we need you to sign off on the FERPA. That will give us permission to release your transcript to the colleges. And then if the college requires a counselor recommendation, then the counselor will write a recommendation for you as well. Some information needed for Common App. Class size is 641 this year. Amador PUSD does not rank students. The grading scales of 4.0, grade type is weighted. There's our school address, and then date of entry is August 10th, 2022. And then graduation is going to be May 29th, 2026. Can you believe it? It's coming up. School and CEB code, Amador's is 052495. And then if you need the CSU mentor code, it is 3594. Next slide. And so most colleges allow you to use Common App, except for Texas public universities, although I know UT Austin's on there now. Other applications to be aware of is Applied Texas or a college's specific platforms such as MIT or Georgetown. If the for the Common App, as long as you sign the FERPA, the counselor will go ahead and upload your application, or sorry, upload your transcript to your secondary report. But for MIT or Georgetown or any other outside college that you're applying to through their college platform, you will need to request a transcript through Parchment sent directly to the college. Next slide. So important dates and reminders. Access workshops. So starting this Wednesday for the month of October and the month of November, counselors will be in the MP providing help and support to students on their application. So if you just want an hour to work on your application during Access, you can sign up in FlexiSketch under Amador Counseling, or if you have questions on your applications and you need some help, you can also sign up for the counseling workshop. We'll be in the NPR and we'll answer any questions that you have. And then we have application night workshop that's tomorrow night from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Amador Library. So that's for students and parents, but parents, you have to have your student with you. And then students, you're welcome to come on your own if you would like. It's a drop-in, so you can come the whole time and work on your application if you want, or you can come in, get your question answered, and then go. And counselors will be just walking around seeing if you need any help on your application. Financial aid night is to be determined. Usually that is in December. And then Tri-Valley College Fair is going to be October 20th at Livermore High School from 6:30 to 8:30. So if you have colleges that you're still trying to decide on, or you're still looking to see which colleges are out there that might be a good fit for you, I would strongly encourage you to go to the Tri-Valley College Fair. The UC application deadline is actually December 1st, so we'll update that for you. And then CSU application deadline is December 1st. Once the application opens, like Ms. Hashimi said, then we will update the slide to let you know the priority deadline schools that are December 1st, and then some of the CSUs, depending on the school, may have a later deadline. The FAFSA priority deadline is March 2nd, and the FAFSA actually opened early. It opened last week, so you can go ahead and start working on your FAFSA. And then LPC priority, Las Positas Community College priority enrollment is in spring 2026. And then if you are applying early decision, early action with a November 1st deadline, remember that October 1st is the deadline to request a letter of recommendation from your counselor or your teacher. Teachers, you need to ask if they'd be willing to write you a letter of rec. Counselor, you need to answer the counselor evaluation questions, and you need to invite us as a recommender through Common App. Under the recommendations section, put the counselor's email after you complete your FERPA questions. So remember, Wednesday's the big day. Okay. So thank you so much for your time and attention. We know this can be a stressful time, so please be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and remember that you are not defined by your test scores, GPA, or the colleges that you apply to, get accepted by, or attend. I know sometimes it's hard, but please keep that in mind that you are already an awesome human being with a bright future ahead of you, and the counseling team is here to support you. So thank you again for coming. We hope you had a great, we hope that this information was helpful to you, and we hope that you have an amazing evening. So thank you so much for coming. We will go ahead and post the slides to the counseling website tomorrow, and then we'll also share out the video of the webinar. So thank you again for coming.